Excuse me, I think you're in the wrong section. The words dripped with condescension as the flight attendant looked down at the Williams family settled into seats 2A, 2B, and 2C. First class. The most expensive seats on the plane. Michael Williams looked up from helping his wife, Angela, stow their carry-on luggage, his 6-year-old son nestled in the window seat with wide, excited eyes. He'd heard that tone before, the subtle suggestion that people like them didn't belong in spaces like this. No, Michael said calmly, pulling out his boarding passes. We're exactly where we're supposed to be. The flight attendant, her name tag read, Jennifer, barely glanced at the passes. Sir, these seats are for first-class passengers only. Economy is in the back. Around them, other first-class passengers looked up from their champagne and hot towels. Some faces showed discomfort. Others showed something worse, agreement. We are first-class passengers, Angela said, her voice tight but controlled. Our boarding passes clearly show. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to gather your things and move to your correct seats before we delay this flight. What happened next would unfold over the course of 3 hours at 35,000 feet. It would involve a phone call that would send shockwaves through the airline industry. It would expose the ugly truth about who is presumed to belong in luxury and who isn't. And it would reveal that sometimes, the person you're discriminating against has the power to change your entire world. Because Michael Williams wasn't just any passenger. And the phone call he was about to make would transform this routine act of racism into a moment that would cost the airline millions, end multiple careers, and become a case study in corporate accountability. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to the beginning of this flight, and show you exactly how everything fell apart. 30 minutes before takeoff. Michael Williams had earned his first-class seat the hard way. Not through miles or upgrades, but through cold, hard cash and a decade of building one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the Pacific Northwest. At 38 years old, he was the CEO of CloudSync Technologies, a company valued at $2.3 billion that had revolutionized data security for Fortune 500 companies. But none of that mattered when you were a black man sitting in first class. His wife Angela, a corporate attorney specializing in discrimination law, had initially protested the expense. Michael, we could fly economy and donate the difference to. No, he'd said firmly. We've earned this. Jordan deserves to see his parents enjoying the success we've worked for. I'm not going to teach my son that we should make ourselves smaller to make others comfortable. Now, standing in the aisle with a flight attendant questioning their right to be there, Michael wondered if he'd made a mistake. Jennifer, he said, reading her name tag again. I purchased these tickets 6 weeks ago. I have the credit card receipt, the confirmation email, and these boarding passes. What exactly makes you think we're in the wrong seats? Jennifer's lips pressed into a thin line. Sir, I'm just following protocol. What protocol? The protocol where you assumed black passengers can't afford first class? The cabin went silent. Other passengers suddenly found their phones fascinating. A businessman across the aisle adjusted his newspaper, hiding behind it. That's not... Jennifer's face flushed. I'm not being racist. I'm doing my job. Your job is to check boarding passes. Angela interjected, holding hers up. Here's mine. Here's my husband's. Here's our son's. All clearly marked for seats 2A, B, and C. So either there's a computer error or you're profiling us. A man in seat 1A, late 50s, expensive suit, the kind of white man who'd never been questioned about belonging anywhere, leaned forward. Maybe if you just showed them your tickets properly instead of causing a scene. Michael felt the familiar heat rising in his chest. The implication was clear. If they would just be more compliant, more grateful, more quiet, this would all work itself out. We did show our tickets, Michael said evenly. The problem isn't our compliance. It's her assumption. Jennifer's supervisor appeared, a tall man with graying hair and a manager's badge reading, Robertson. What seems to be the problem? These passengers are insisting they belong in first class. Because we do, Angela interrupted, handing Chin their boarding passes. Chin examined them, his expression shifting as he looked from the passes to the Williams family and back again. Michael could see the calculation happening, the conflict between what the passes clearly showed and whatever bias was running through the man's mind. These appear to be valid, Chen said slowly. They don't just appear to be valid, Michael said. They are valid. We paid $4,200 for these 3 seats. A woman in seat 3C gasped audibly. The price tag seemed to offend her more than their presence. Well, Chen said, if you wouldn't mind, I'd just like to verify these with the gate agent. Are you verifying everyone's tickets? Angela asked. Or just ours? Silence. Because I didn't see you verify his ticket. She pointed to the man in 1A. Or hers, nodding to the gasping woman. Just ours. The only black family in this cabin. Jordan tugged on his father's sleeve. Daddy, why don't they want us to sit here? The question pierced through all the adult politeness, all the coded language, all the corporate protocols. From the mouths of babes. Michael knelt down to his son's level. Some people make assumptions about others based on how they look, buddy. These folks assumed we couldn't afford these seats. But you started a whole company, Jordan said, his 6-year-old logic simple and devastating. You told me we could sit anywhere we worked hard enough to sit. I did say that. So were you wrong? Michael looked up at Jennifer, at Chen, at the other passengers watching this family drama unfold. No, son. I wasn't wrong. They are. Chen shifted uncomfortably. Sir, if you just give me a moment to make a call. Make your call, Michael said, standing up. But we're not moving from these seats. If you want to delay this flight while you verify what the boarding passes already show, that's your choice. But you're not displacing my family based on your prejudices. The standoff intensified. Other passengers were getting restless now, some because they agreed with the Williams family, others because they just wanted the plane to take off. Jennifer pulled Chen aside, whispering urgently. Michael caught fragments, causing a disturbance. Other passengers are uncomfortable. Might need to call security. Angela's hand found Michael's, her grip tight. They'd talked about scenarios like this. Prepared for them. But preparing for discrimination and experiencing it in front of your child were 2 different things. Mr. Williams, Chen said, returning, we're going to need to resolve this before we can depart. If you'll just step off the aircraft for a moment. No. The word hung in the air like a grenade. Sir, I'm asking you nicely. And I'm declining nicely. We're not leaving these seats. We're not stepping off this aircraft. We're not accepting being treated like criminals for the crime of flying while black. Michael's voice was calm but absolutely firm. What we are going to do is sit here while you decide whether you want to admit your mistake and let this flight take off, or whether you want to escalate this into something that will be very, very bad for this airline. Is that a threat? Chen's voice hardened. It's a statement of fact. Because you've made 2 assumptions today that are going to cost you dearly. First, you assumed we don't belong here. Second, you assumed we don't have the power to do anything about it. Michael pulled out his phone. Now I'm going to make a call. And when I'm done, you're going to wish you'd simply apologized and moved on. Chen's expression wavered between anger and uncertainty. Sir, threatening our staff. I'm not threatening anyone. I'm making a phone call. Michael looked directly at him. The question is whether you're going to let me make it from this seat, or whether you're going to force me off this plane and make it from the terminal. Either way, the call gets made. But the second option is going to be much, much worse for you. The man in 1A scoffed. Just get them off the plane. We're all tired of waiting. Michael turned to him. I'm sorry our civil rights are inconveniencing your schedule. Your attitude is what's inconveniencing my schedule. No, Angela said icily, her lawyer persona fully engaged now. Your racism is what's inconveniencing your schedule. And trust me, a short delay is going to be the least of your concerns. The call that changed everything. Michael dialed a number he knew by heart. The phone rang twice before a crisp, professional voice answered. Mr. Williams, how can I help you? Linda. Michael said, putting the call on speaker. I need you to conference in our legal team and our media relations director. We have a situation. Around him, he could feel the energy shifting. Chen's face had gone from red to pale. Jennifer had taken a step back. What kind of situation, sir? My family and I are currently sitting in first-class seats we paid for on Flight 2847 from Seattle to New York. We've been questioned, accused of being in the wrong section, and told we need to leave the aircraft despite having valid tickets. We are the only black passengers in first class. There was a pause. Then Linda's voice returned, sharper now. I'm conferencing in Rachel from legal and Tom from media relations now. Within 30 seconds, 3 voices were on the line. Michael spoke clearly, methodically, laying out exactly what had happened. Around him, the first-class cabin had gone deathly silent. Mr. Williams? Rachel's voice came through. Can you tell me which airline this is? Michael hadn't mentioned it yet. He looked directly at Chen. Would you like to tell them, or should I? Chen's mouth opened and closed. The man looked like he was having an out-of-body experience, watching his career implode in real time. It's Coastal Airlines, Michael said. Flight 2847. Tom from Media Relations spoke up. Are there other passengers who've witnessed this? An entire first-class cabin. And I believe airline cameras in the jetway recorded the initial interaction. Sir? Chen finally found his voice. If you'll just give us a moment to sort this out. Michael muted the phone. You've had several moments to sort this out. You chose to escalate. Now we're at a different stage of sorting out. He unmuted. Rachel, I need you to prepare a discrimination complaint. Tom, I want a statement ready to send to major media outlets within the hour. And Linda, I need you to reach out to the ACLU, the NAACP, and every civil rights organization in our contact database. Angela added. I'll be filing my own complaint as an attorney. This falls under clear Title II Civil Rights Act violations, along with state-level discrimination laws. The woman in 3C looked horrified. This is being blown way out of proportion. Is it? Angela turned to her. Would you like me to walk you through the legal definition of discrimination? Because this is textbook. Presumption of wrongdoing based solely on race, disparate treatment compared to other passengers, and hostile environment creation. The man in 1A had put down his newspaper, his earlier smugness replaced with dawning concern. Look, maybe everyone just needs to calm down. We are calm, Michael said. We're also documenting. Several passengers have been recording this encounter. Those videos will be exhibits A through D in our lawsuit. Indeed, phones were out all over the cabin now. Some passengers were recording in support, others probably just wanting viral content. Either way, the evidence was being collected in real time. The captain emerged from the cockpit, drawn by the commotion. What's going on here? Chen looked relieved at the reinforcement. Captain Morrison, these passengers are refusing to cooperate with our pre-flight verification process. That's not what's happening, Angela interrupted. What's happening is your staff assumed we couldn't afford first-class seats, demanded we move despite valid tickets, and have now wasted 20 minutes of everyone's time trying to remove us from the plane. Captain Morrison looked at the boarding passes that Chen still held. These are valid tickets. Yes, they are, Michael said. Then why are we having this conversation? The question was directed at Chen, whose face went from pale to gray. Hi, we were just following protocol. What protocol? Morrison's voice had an edge now. The protocol where we harass paying customers based on the color of their skin. The tide had turned. Michael could feel it. But he wasn't done. Captain, Michael said, I appreciate your intervention. But the damage is done. My 6-year-old son just learned that we can be questioned and treated as suspects even when we've done nothing wrong. My wife and I, both successful professionals, have been humiliated in front of a cabin full of strangers. And this airline needs to understand that this isn't acceptable. Morrison nodded slowly. You're absolutely right. Mr. Chen, Ms. Jennifer, we'll be discussing this after we land. For now, I want written apologies to this family, and I want them given immediately. Captain, Chen started. That wasn't a request. Jennifer looked like she might cry. I'm sorry, she said quietly. I made an assumption. It was wrong. What assumption? Michael pressed. Say it out loud. I assumed you couldn't afford first class. Because of your race. The admission hung in the air. Several passengers looked away, uncomfortable with the naked truth. Chen's apology was more reluctant, more corporate, but it came. I apologize for the misunderstanding and any distress we caused. It wasn't a misunderstanding, Angela corrected. It was discrimination. Use the right word. I apologize for discriminating against you. Michael looked at his phone, where his team was still listening. Did you all get that? Recorded, Tom confirmed. But Mr. Williams, I'd recommend we still proceed with the formal complaint and media statement. This is part of a larger pattern in the airline industry. Agreed. Michael looked at Captain Morrison. We're going to take our seats now. We're going to fly to New York. And when we land, your corporate office is going to receive a detailed complaint, along with a demand for systemic change in how this airline trains and monitors its staff. Morrison nodded. Fair enough. And for what it's worth, I'm sorry this happened. As the plane finally began to taxi, Michael felt Jordan's small hand slip into his. Daddy, did you win? How do you explain to a 6-year-old that winning isn't about getting to keep your seat, but about the exhausting fight you have to have just to claim what's already yours? We're still here, buddy. That's something. Are you still going to make them sorry? Michael smiled grimly. Yes, son. I am. By the time the plane landed in New York, Michael's team had already begun their work. The story hit Twitter first, then major news outlets. Video footage from passengers went viral. Hashtag Coastal Airlines Racism started trending. Within 48 hours, Coastal Airlines had issued a public apology, announced a review of all discrimination complaints from the past 5 years, and committed to mandatory bias training for all staff. Within a week, Jennifer had been terminated, Chen had been demoted, and 3 other instances of similar discrimination on coastal flights had come to light. Within a month, Michael's company pulled its corporate travel contract with Coastal, a $3.2 million annual agreement, and convinced 4 other major companies in their network to do the same. The call had changed everything. Michael Williams's phone call didn't just solve his immediate problem, it exposed a pattern of discrimination that had been happening for years. That's the power of speaking up when you have the platform and resources to make your voice heard. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Michael could make that call because he was a CEO with connections, resources, and power. Most people experiencing discrimination on flights don't have those advantages. They suffer in silence, file complaints that go nowhere, and learn to accept that certain spaces weren't meant for them. That's why stories like this matter. They shine a light on the everyday racism that people of color face in spaces where they're presumed not to belong. First-class cabins, executive offices, exclusive neighborhoods, country clubs. The assumptions are the same. You don't look like you belong here. If you're watching this and you've experienced something similar, I want you to know, you're not imagining it. It's real. It's documented. It's systemic. And it's wrong. If you're watching this and you've never experienced it, I want you to understand, this is what your black colleagues, neighbors, and friends navigate constantly. The questioning. The second-guessing. The exhausting requirement to prove they belong in spaces they've earned access to. What can you do? First, believe people when they tell you about these experiences. Second, speak up when you witness discrimination. The passengers who recorded that encounter and posted it online helped create accountability. Third, vote with your wallet. Support companies that prioritize diversity and accountability. Share this video. Subscribe to this channel for more stories that expose racism and celebrate those who fight back. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. And most importantly, comment below, have you witnessed discrimination like this? Did you speak up? What happened? Be like Michael. Make the call. Use whatever platform you have to demand better. Because silence protects the system. But your voice can help change it.